Hi there, this is Eshu. I'm the abbot here at Zenwest Buddhist Society. This Living Zen-podcast is just one of the many resources we've created at Zenwest to make Zen practice and training more available and accessible to people all over the world. Instructional videos, printable resources, and much, much more are also available on our website at www.zenwest.ca. If you're a regular listener, I'd love to hear from you. So please drop me an email at office@zenwest.ca and let me know who you are, how you got started, and what brought you to Zen. Everything we make available in person and online at Zenwest is only possible because of the support of our members and associates, people like you. If the efforts of our community are making a difference in your life, I'd like to invite you to show your support and take part in making it happen by becoming an associate or member of the Zenwest Sangha. You can do this by clicking the Join Us tab on our website at www.zenwest.ca. Thank you for your support, and thanks for listening. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hope everyone who's at the potluck got a good night's sleep, and I'm glad that everyone made it out. Historically, I've always canceled the sit after the potluck, but over the past couple of years, I've really noticed that because we rent a space and the timeline is so kind of rigid, if we're out of there really at 10 o'clock, everyone just goes home and goes to sleep. So there's really no reason. Maybe too much eating, but maybe if we have a sit the next day, people will bear that in mind, or maybe not. Anyways, last night, as we were closing, Unzan and I were in town, and he said, "Okay, so what's the deal tomorrow, boss? What's the wake up?" So he said, "Is it 4:30 or 5:30?" I said, "Oh, we'll have a lazy sleep in of 6:30. He said, "Oh yeah, right on." So as you know, last week we lost a chicken. Stella, who was she was really quite a prized chicken. Huge, fluffy, beautiful chicken. And there was a mystery as to who the culprit was that got her. And so this lazy sleep in this morning at around 6 o'clock, just before 6 o'clock this morning, I heard Unzan upstairs roaming around and moaning. And then as I regained consciousness, I realized that it wasn't Unzan. And at first I heard this sound that sounded like, whoa, whoa. And I realized that it was actually Carson sort of pacing around up here going, whoa, whoa. Not wanting to bark, but wanting to make some noise. And then I heard this sort of like rattle outside. So I got up and I went to the back door and flicked on the light, and there at the back door of the chicken coop was a black bear, about 400 pounds. When the light went on, he sat down and just sort of looked up, and he had pulled the window off the chicken coop. And so I, of course, opened the door and grabbed a big stick and went, "Ah!" And he ran away. And then I went back to the bedroom and said, "There's a bear out there." And Nikki said, "And you yelled at it?" I said, "Yeah." So the light went out, and then I heard another rattle, and I went back, and sure enough, he was back. So I got Carson, and we went outside and peed everywhere and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm in the market for some electric fence, I think, because he knows they're there and they'll be back. My neighbor's dog is off the hook. But this, actually, the whole event is one of those, I realized, is one of those, does everyone know the story of the farmer and his horse, and he loses his horse, and it's bad luck maybe. So anyways, over the past few days, we've been noticing this trend. As I said, Stella was a beautiful, big chicken. And occasionally when I would collect eggs, I would notice that one of them would be pecked. And we average about 3 or 4 eggs a day. Well, we've noticed that since Stella has disappeared, we're averaging about 5 eggs a day, which may explain why she was such a big chicken. So, lose a chicken and production goes up. Anyways. Mysteries. So, of course, this morning I was like, oh, so lucky to have a sleep until 6:30, which doesn't happen. It's always one thing. This life seems to give rise to one thing after the other. And I think in our practice, one of the things that I've certainly learned is to not get too upset when this happens, and not really be surprised when it happens. More and more as I practice, and particularly in a community, when I was really early in practice, Eshu quoted, I think, a line from Saint Benedict. And I was complaining about something or other having to do with, having to do so much work around the Zen Center. And he said, Saint Benedict said, "Why seek rest? You were born to labor." And that line just, for some reason, always stuck with me. And whenever I catch myself sort of looking forward to the break, or looking forward to the sort of lull, or when the Zen Center is going to be financially stable, or when members are not going to have any problems in their lives, or nobody's going to want to talk to me about horrible things that happened when they were young. Whenever I find myself sort of like putting that out there, I always remember, like, that's not going to happen. And if it does, to just really not get too attached to it, because this life and practice and opening ourselves to this engagement with this activity of the cosmos makes us always aware of what's arising, and things are always arising. At the potluck last night, I spoke a little bit about the history of Zenwest, Victoria Zen Center. And I was speaking to a few people about how I think that it's about time that as a community we actually create some kind of a record, like a book or some kind of physical record of our history, because I think that it's easy to forget, and we get so caught up in our current troubles and concerns, and we think, oh, this is it, and that's, this is horrible, and it's never been like this before, and all that kind of stuff. And in preparing to talk about the history of the Zen Center, I went back to the origins of the Zen Center and looked through all just the annual general meeting minutes from 1980 to 2009. And they're remarkably similar to the minutes that we have today. The numbers are bigger, absolutely. But somehow the numbers are bigger, but still proportionately inadequate. So, 1984, one member talking about, we should look at raising membership dues so that we can cover the rent. One member suggesting that we really need to focus on having some activities other than just sit, so that the community can build and make relationships together. And we need to look at including more intensive practice. And I'm just going like, oh my God, really? So like I said, the number of people involved in our community has grown, and our reach has grown, and the numbers, the finances have grown, and the engagement of people involved in the Zen Center and doing work to make all of this stuff happen has grown. But, the circumstance is are remarkably the same. Several years ago, I got a copy of the Baizhang Monastic Code, which is I think it was originally written in around 600 or something. This version of it was a translation of a copy from 1600. And, it reads remarkably like our annual general meeting. The job of the fundraiser is a daunting task. The requirements of resources on a Zen temple are always in excess of the amount of resources available. And I'm just going like, oh. So again, this realization that for this practice to work, it really requires constant vigilance, constant attention, constant effort. One of the reasons that I think we really develop this awareness is and ability to focus, ability to pay attention, is it seems like the more I look at it, the things that we do in life that are unhealthy, the things that we do in life that are that create suffering for ourselves and for others, they always seem to really easily develop momentum. They seem to really easily become habits. You know, 1 chocolate bar leads to 10 chocolate bars. 1 cigarette leads to 100 cigarettes. You know, sitting on your couch all day leads, watching 1 episode of your favorite show on Netflix easily leads to, oh God, it's 3 o'clock. I really need to sleep. And it seems like the things that we do that are of benefit and are worthwhile and are reduce suffering for ourselves and others, man, they're so hard to make into, like, they never become automatic. Never. I talk about the consistency of practice, and I talk about, it really does help to make it a regular practice, or to make it a consistent, habitual practice. But what I've realized is that it really never becomes a habit. Like, you never wake up and just sort of unconsciously plop yourself down on this. It doesn't happen. Exercise, I think that's the same thing. It's like, do you ever really just arrive at the gym and go, oh, how did I get here? No, I think we have to actively land in our lives and make a choice about these kinds of things that are beneficial. And whether it's a small thing or whether it's a big thing, whether it's brushing our teeth, whether it's the food that we're putting in our mouths, or the company that we keep, or what we're saying and how we're engaging in relationship, how we're dealing with family members, how we're engaging in the creation of the Zen Center. It's like any time we hop on a toboggan and want the easy ride down the hill is when things really start to go downhill. One of the sort of contemporary teachers of Dharma, Noah Levine, has a whole organization called Against the Stream. And this comes from traditional Buddhist teaching, in which this idea of practicing the Dharma is an activity which goes against the stream. And I think that's really sort of what I'm pointing at, is that when we're practicing awareness, when we're developing our vision and developing our sensitivity and developing our hearts and our connection, really waking up to our intimate relationship with all things in this cosmos, it sounds so wonderful. But what we realize is that we start to see more and more of the shit that's going on. We start to see more and more of how we are involved, intimately involved, in suffering that we're creating for ourselves and for others. We start to see how our conduct and our choices are intimately related to the problems that we're having as a world. The fact that I'm driving a car, the fact that I'm buying food from here, the fact that I make choices to wear clothes and to involve myself in all kinds of activities, that when I actually step back and start to see where this stuff is coming from, I can't lie anymore. I can't deny it to myself anymore. And so I think that a lot of the time there's always this temptation to shut down, to pretend that it's not happening, to avoid sort of looking too deeply into things. But as we get more and more deeply involved in our Zen practice, it becomes harder and harder to just shut it off. I talk a lot about, how having practice as a piece of your pie, having your spiritual practice, having your Zen practice as being one aspect of your life, along with your hobbies and your relationships and your work and all of that kind of stuff. But as we practice more and more, that awareness begins to permeate all of the areas of our lives. And this is one of the more difficult aspects of practice when it comes to talking to people about what it means to get engaged in Zen practice. Because a lot of the time people are really just looking for relief from stress or difficulty. And they're looking from a sort of analgesic perspective, top-down, sort of, how do I just take the edge off of this? And Buddhism, Zen, is actually concerned with sort of fundamental. Why are you having this cause? It's not the tip of the iceberg that's sort of, risen above the surface. Because if we eliminate that, the problem is still there. And what we find is that if we just eliminate the top, which is what we tend to do a lot of the time, then eventually the sort of movement below the surface just makes a new top. Sometimes in the same place, sometimes in a different place. But when we learn to look, we recognize it. We say, this is just we've cut off the top, but there's a whole system underneath that keeps producing these things. And if we go along in life and we're just concerned with the top, and we're not looking, we tend to look at those tops as fundamentally different things. We're like, there's a problem in my relationship. Here's a problem in my job. Here's a problem with my environment. The people in the street are jerks, and my kids are a problem. And we fail to actually see the intimate connection that exists below the surface. It's difficult to talk to people about this because, right off the top, if we're concerned fundamentally about increasing our membership, developing our financial stability, things like this, saying to people off the top that engaging in Zen practice may result in you leaving the relationship that you're currently in. It may result in you leaving the career that you're currently in. It may result in you abandoning the educational pursuits that you're currently involved in. It may involve you moving from the place that you've lived and grown up your whole life to some new place. And I can't say it will, but I certainly can't say that it won't. And I certainly can say that it has for many people. And these things may become necessary as you become more and more aware of the substance that's below the surface. And that's terrifying. We identify ourselves as all of those things, through all of those things. When somebody says, in a tea circle on a Tuesday night, tell us a little bit about yourself. Or if you're to say, who are you? This is a koan in Zen. Who are you? Who am I? As we sit, who am I? And I always like to say, who am I without referring? Without referring to my relationship, without referring to my job, without referring to my place that I reside, without referring to my parents. Who am I? And this is a fundamental question that we can ask ourselves in our Zen practice. And what we find is when we start to question these things, when we start to look for ourselves outside of those relative identifiers, those relative identifiers really start to break up a little bit. And we start to realize that in many cases we have habitually gravitated towards those things. Or we've gravitated towards some of those things because they were the path of least resistance. They were either easy or they were less painful than other options available at that time. One of the aspects of Zen practice that I really see is that as we go forward with practice, people become stronger and stronger. The still, soft voice that resides within us, we seem to have two. Genjo calls the sage beyond our years and the wounded child, or the rascal and the wizard. You can call them whatever you want. But as we go forward, that self-serving, I want to do this, I want to stay in bed, I want to eat that, I want to have fun, I want to, not be so serious all the time. And the voice of, but this is what our heart is nourished by. The balance of those things starts to transform and to tip. And as we come forward more and more in practice, that confident, still, stable nature starts to manifest more and more. And it does it in all kinds of ways. Last night at the Harvest Potluck, the things that struck me most were just the way people were. And I'm going to maybe embarrass some people, so I'm sorry. Hoyu did the sort of assessment, or the sort of the competition of centerpieces. And she did this in such a way that was in a strong, confident voice. There was an aspect of sort of improvisation, spontaneity, dynamism about it. And I was just sitting there going, this never would have happened 5 years ago. This never would have happened. There was a musical performance in which the band formerly known as the Tattooed Ladies, that was changed to the Bearded Ladies and is now known as It'll Be So Much Fun. They did this song, and I was thinking back to years where it was like there was so much emphasis on it being sort of funny and entertaining, so no one will actually notice we're up here singing. And last night there were harmonies, there were solo pieces, and these were like Kosen, who's generally strikes me as a very shy person, was singing a solo. And it was such a lovely, intimate song. There was this, it's lovely. And I thought, this would have never happened 5 years ago. We see people in our community who have been stuck in jobs out of fear. I can't do this. Stuck in relationships out of habit, that after practicing for some time, after really developing the awareness and seeing what's really going on under the surface, have transformed their lives. It's almost never actually in an explosive way, because it seems like practice really forces us to look at it and look at it and look at it and look at it. We see pretty early on that there's a problem, and through our practice we see more and more the nature of that problem and the tendrils and corners of that problem. And we spend so much time sitting that we actually start to figure out ways to resolve that problem. Sometimes the solution just arises of its own course. Sometimes we see through our practice that what we have is actually beautiful. And maybe we learn to appreciate and love that thing even more. More and more as a community, I think, we're starting to see that what we have as a community is a beautiful thing. But I think that we're also learning that just like exercise, and just like zazen, and just like, grooming, it's not something that will take care of itself. It's not something that we can all ride on and get a toboggan down the hill. It's something that requires constant vigilance. And I'm really delighted to see more and more in this community that people are becoming aware of this, and that it's not all Eshu's job. In fact, Eshu can only do what Eshu can do. And each one of us has our own strength and our own confidence and our own voice. And because this community is supportive, it's been wonderful to see members sticking around for years and years and allowing this practice to work, because it is powerful. It does transform us, but it takes time. It takes time and endurance. It takes courage and compassion. It takes commitment. And these are all, core values of our organization. And one of those core values that is often sort of underplayed, that I think is going to come out more and more as we go forward, is joy. What I'm seeing more and more are people stepping forward into relationship with one another in this community that is aimed at awakening. And when we come together with like-minded people and celebrate this awakening, we celebrate this world, we celebrate this amazing activity that's taking place that we're all a part of, it's not a fake smile joy. It's a deep and resounding and abundant heart joy. Something we can't fake, and it's something that we can't force. And it's something that I'm feeling more and more as we engage in this endeavor together. So now I'll give you a little bit more joy, and just we can end the sit and go have a walk.
Thanks for listening to the Living Zen podcast. If you follow Living Zen through iTunes, I would very much appreciate it if you would take a moment to let me know what you think about it by rating or reviewing the podcast, so that new listeners can also hear what you have to say. Thank you for your time and for your support.